the journalists who are here. We have just made a statement in the legislature this morning. Firstly, just to put into context that gender-based violence is one of the major areas of crime in our province. We have what is called the trio crimes that over time our police have been focusing on, and MEC Nkosi Malibane may say a little bit about what the trio crimes are, which includes robbery, housebreaking, and murder arising from that. Together with the trio crimes, gender-based violence is a matter of great concern, and you would see at different points. So gender-based violence essentially perpetrated against women and children, and at different periods, you'd see earlier this year we had a very concentrated attacks on young women, and these largely professionals, a very concentrated focus on that. Now we're talking really about girl learners, but women are brutalized in our community, and we want what is happening in our schools to be understood in that broad context, that these are crimes that are gender-based, perpetrated against women, young women, the elderly, including senior citizens. I was addressing on Tuesday on International Older Persons Day, the elderly people who gathered in Alexandra from all over our province, so including senior citizens, Abu Gogo, Bongkhulu. So it impacts on women across the board, across race, across gender, and across geographic location, across age. So what have we been doing to deal with this? And that's why we think that the response must be comprehensive. It must be multidisciplinary. You can't only look at one part and not deal with the other parts. Earlier this year in August, we launched a campaign that we call Empower the Girl Child, Empower the Young Woman. And focusing on the girl children and young women there, we say the critical issue of empowerment is education and skills development, because it is when that is the staircase to independence, living independent livelihood. And when women live independent livelihood, they can make independent decisions, they earn their own income. It doesn't mean they will not be victims of gender-based violence, because even professional women, as I was saying, even across race, across class, they, in relationships, they experience one type of abuse or the other, including violence. But when they are independent, they earn their own income. It's not the same as when they depend on men, because people stay in abusive relationship, violent relationships, because they depend on that. Women always explain to us when we talk to them at Ekhaya Lethemba, it's very difficult to walk out of an abusive or violent relationship when you have no source of income. But they do, as we meet them at Ekhaya Lethemba, they walk out of that into nothing often, take the children with, and that's why we also have a place for children at our place of safety, Ekhaya Lethemba here, where we have about another 30 places of safety across Gauteng province, where we accommodate the women who come there with their children, and we take care of the children. Education and social development will take care of these children, whereas safety, community safety, would look at the cases to follow through on them. So we start there, that we're dealing here with a sketch that affects different sections of women in our society, and this requires a comprehensive, not a crisis-ridden response, because we chase this and then leave the others. So what has been our comprehensive response? Part of that is strengthening the law enforcement agencies' capacity to arrest, investigate these cases, and bring the perpetrators to book. So on all the cases, we are talking about the schools. What we can say to you is that the perpetrators, in this case the suspects, because until they are prosecuted, they are suspects, they are arrested. They've been arrested, all of them. So we have a specialized police unit that's called the FCS. That's that police unit, family violence, children, and sexual offenses. These are crimes, what I call the crimes against women and children. That's the specialized police unit. It's one of the most amazing. The police often come under heavy attack about not doing their work well. I'm very proud of the FCS. It brings in an integration of investigators, forensics, social workers, all different skills we need, like the children we have at AB Kuma, the 87 of them. For you to secure a successful prosecution, because these are children, you need the investigators who know how to deal with children, the forensic social workers, who can get the children to talk. Sometimes this is even babies at Ekale Temba. We deal sometimes with sexual abuse of babies, not children at school at all. So you need this expertise. So we are strengthening the police capacity, not only typical police, but the integration of other skills, expertise and they work in an amazing way to prepare for cases, to do trial runs. I've seen it myself. And I think MEC Mayatula Khoza and goes, you must take the media to Ekale Temba. The only thing I know is that there are people there, there are women there. Some of them don't even know, they don't want especially the perpetrators to know where they are. So but I would love that the media tours that facility. It's 1 out of 30. About what is government doing to deal with gender-based violence, to get the women to rebuild their own lives. And a lot of those women, we bring in the private sector. We have a partnership with the Edgar's group. They train, they retrain them. These women are now producing clothing. I went there to see the clothes. And then as part of this partnership with Edgar's, what is it called? Orange Day. Every month. These women produce this, and that Edgar's group is able to take the clothes that they make into their process. And many of the women emerge there having rebuilt their own lives, and they go back to normal life. They work, and they tell their story on how they've overcome abuse and violence, and inspire other women too. I have listened to the story of 3 that we went. We had an event there who told the story of how they have survived gender-based violence, and they're now on their own. Children, and just coming out of, so the FCS, let me just conclude this amazing group of not just police officers, but as well as social workers working together with the NPA and the criminal justice system. They have secured a lot of prosecutions. Pumla, I hope they have the statement. They have the statement. I gave the figures, 558 in 2015-16 prosecutions, some up to 30, 40 years. And there's life, several of them life, people saving life in prison. Last year, 800 and I think I gave the figure there, how many? last year, and just in the first part of the financial year, 200 prosecutions. To secure successful prosecutions, very, very important part of it. To send a message in society that we will catch you and you will be brought to justice. And in this is one area where the police are really doing well. And I'm confident that even with the people that have been arrested, and I know in one school we have minors, 13-year-olds, 14-year-olds, in one school, outside the school in Soweto. That's why we must also focus on the learners themselves. So this team, this cabinet committee, in addition to law enforcement and strengthening the fight and the arrest and the successful prosecution, we have other dimensions of their work. Their work also education. Here the work is led by MEC Mayatula Khoza. We need to raise awareness amongst young women about their rights, but around, so she's leading a public education campaign. Some MECs have already been sent to our schools from August to have conversation with these girl learners, including how they must avoid, they must not put themselves in circumstances, compromising circumstances where they can easily be abused. So there's education, even the boy learners, because you can't tackle the scourge of gender-based violence by excluding men in this conversation. The girl learners are also an area of focus. I went to a school with the MECs. It was a girls-only school in August where we launched the campaign. But we said the message must also go to the boy learners. So again, it's education. They must know also the consequences. If they get involved in crime, this is crime, basically. We proceed from the premise that this is crime. And that we must educate our youth to understand, because to deal with patriarchy as an underlying issue of inequalities between men and women, socially constructed inequalities between men and women. We want our boy children and our girl children to understand that. So one part of it is education campaign. We're also bringing in partners, NGOs that are in this space, gender equity and other NGOs. We also, part of this is to also focus on the major concern that HIV and AIDS increases are now amongst the young women. So the key component of this is to, when in our engagement with young women, is the greatest, we have arrested the spread of HIV and AIDS as a country, but the biggest concern is that we are back to new infections amongst young women. So that's one dimension of dealing with the issue. So, and again, we bring in health in the process. Education, because we have more than 2 million learners in our schools, and more than 1.2 million of them are girls. Education is a very key focus of this empowering the girl child and empowering the young women. Part of this is making sure that they get more opportunities through our TEPO 1 million, particularly girls. In our bursary schemes, we want to promote and target, ensure that we have more girls as part of the liberation of women can't occur if they are not educated. So big interventions in education. That's why when you have this violence taking place and the rape, the increases as it is now, rape, molestation of girl learners, it touches us where it hurts most. I said on Tuesday when we were opening the school that the criminals are touching us where it hurts most, because this is the future of our country. They are touching us in our studio, and we will go for them. I use that word, that we will go for them. We're not going to give them space. So urgent intervention. So there is the work the police are doing through the FCS to deal with crime against women and children in general. But we want we want this team to have a concentrated efforts on all our schools. But it's not only schools. The police are also giving us a profiling of communities where outside the school, the crimes against women and children are very, very high in communities and in households. So that's why we're also saying that you can't only have a law enforcement approach, you need community mobilization. The team is going to have conversations with parents, school governing bodies, principals. The principals are important. Half the time the learners report. A learner reports that I was sexually assaulted or molested, and then the teachers keep it silent. They keep it quiet. They keep that a secret. And there's one or two instances where in the last few weeks, MEC Lisufi's team has found out that the learner has reported this. The principal was not even informed by the teacher. In another instance, and in the Soweto instance, the principal herself was informed and the principal did not report the case to the police. So we need everybody. We need the principals, we need these teachers. So this program of, firstly, they have to all, if you don't report a crime, you are committing a crime. Whether you are a principal or you are a teacher, and that they are the custodians, they must take care of our learners. They must be more inquisitive about it, and this engagement with them. But we also know that the school safety program has got a group of people we call school patrollers. And what has come to the fore is that some of those patrollers themselves have been involved in committing this crime. And that's why MEC Nkosi Malubani is going back with the police. We're going to do a re-vetting again of all the patrollers. They were, some of them, but we are convinced that from this evidence that we need all the patrollers who are, that's why in some instances the learners are saying, no, we don't want them here. Anyone who's going to be involved in school safety will be re-vetted themselves. So that's how comprehensive it is. But we want station commanders, and yesterday I met with this team of MECs together with the provincial commissioner, with the team of detectives from the FCS. We want all station commanders also to be able to report in their areas about what's happening on the crimes against women and children. So police performance, earlier this year after the State of the Province address, I met with together with MEC Nkosi Malubani, with all the police leadership in Gauteng, and we have committed them to a priority that we need to have all crimes in Gauteng, priority crimes by 50%, by half. In the top crime-ridden police stations and clusters. Along the priority crimes, gender-based violence, as well as the trio crimes. So this is a commitment we have with the police. As I said during the State of the Province address, we're going to commit police to set specific targets. So we now want station commanders to work with schools. Every station commander in every police station in our province. We have 100 police stations, 142 police stations in Gauteng. Every station commander will also be reporting on what's happening on the crimes against women and children. So there is a comprehensive approach. That's what we call a comprehensive approach. Law enforcement, there's interventions around empowerment, education, social mobilization. Then there's the issue about appealing to communities and women and these girl learners to come to the fore. And that's breaking the silence. Break the silence. If this is not reported, and in many instances it takes quite long for the victim to really come to the fore, because there are many prejudices. But we want to say women should break the silence. We want to say in our schools, our girl children, the girl learners in our schools. We can only deal with this if they speak out and then bring this to the attention of the authorities and the NGOs that we are working with. We don't want to be chasing every day, there's that school, there's that school. I said to the MECs when we met yesterday that we must assume that the scourge, because this is a scourge, the numbers are much higher than what we know. So I want to say to you, we must assume the numbers are much higher. We must assume that almost in every school, because this is the nature of a scourge, almost in every school there would be someone who is affected, and there would be a perpetrator. Sometimes it's boys, sometimes it's workers who are like the general workers who are working in our schools. In one or two instances, they'll say someone working in the garden, security. Sometimes it's even the teachers. And that's why even with the teachers, we take the same strong stance. There must be no teacher in our system who is saved because of negotiations behind the scene. And one of the most difficult things is when the police say people withdraw the cases. The cases have been reported. We have a few instances where we've got 2 cases even about the schools right now, where the family and the learner are not coming forward anymore. They are no longer, the investigators are saying, for us to proceed to the next level, somebody has been arrested, but for us to proceed to go to court and secure a prosecution, we must go through all the phases. And it is a difficult task when cases are withdrawn. And I think that's why we said, the opposition wrote to me on Tuesday and talked about a commission of inquiry. What we say is that when you have a scourge, you tackle the scourge. When you have a scourge, such as the one we have, which is the crime, you tackle it, you deploy all your resources to tackle the scourge. One area where it is happening in homes, in households, is very difficult. The authorities cannot get into households. That's why we also say to families, don't protect sometimes, but to umalumi. Don't protect family members. Some report, and later when we have to go to the next step, withdraw. If we are to tackle this scourge and create a more equal society where men and women are respected equally, particularly women are respected and protected by society, we've got to tackle it even there in our homes and in our households. So our comprehensive approach is something that we think on the law enforcement side, the FCS it's really our shining star. Sometimes they say to us, in 1 or 2 instances, we struggle, but we agreed yesterday that we'll continue the special courts are very important. We will continue to work with the NPA to dedicate special prosecutors, because sometimes the FCS, which is our specialized unit, is ready, but the cases take a bit longer. But so far we are working well with the courts and the prosecution authorities. We want our schools, MEC, our children are writing exams, are preparing for exams. In the next 10 days, I want in every school the focus to be on the exam. So everywhere where this has happened, we want our learners to come to the fore quickly so that we can attend to that, deploy our resources. But in preparation as well for next year, school safety and the caliber of people who are looking after the safety of our schools is something that we will also deal with and clean up. So we have a very comprehensive approach to this issue, but it is a general problem that you can't only sort it out in schools. We have to deal with it across every part of society. In workplaces, the abuse and harassment of women takes place in workplaces as well. So even workplaces, organizations, employers, we must have a focus there on this issue, so that there is no part of our society that is left out. And it's for this reason that we, as government, deploying all the resources we are deploying, increasing force levels, police numbers, dedicating more resources, including vehicles. It's only the law enforcement side of things. But we need other partners. We need the church, the leaders in civil society, in the church. We need to take this message everywhere, and that is the nature of partnership. So this committee of cabinet that's sitting here is going to be driving the program, focusing on different elements of the program. And this cabinet committee was appointed earlier this year when we adopted this program on empowering the girl child and the young women. So thank you very much. If there are questions, we're keen to answer them. We are going to Interesano. You might not know, we have Interesano this afternoon in Midval. So we would love that you give us a chance to go and work, but of course we can't not take questions from you as quickly as possible. Yes, Pumla.